The day the internet went dark. Take the device you're using to watch this. Now, set it down. Go ahead, place a drink on it. Because if the internet were to disappear forever, that might be all it's good for, at least when it comes to surfing the web. As you sit there pondering what to do with the 17 extra years of life you'd gain by not spending all your time online, brace yourself, global markets would lose $49 billion on the very first day. Sounds terrifying, right? But in 2024, researchers in the Netherlands conducted a study with 2 million people, proving that online interactions can actually be good for you. Finally, the justification I needed for all those hours on TikTok. But now, it doesn't matter. Because if the internet is gone, one thing is certain: something else will take its place to keep us all distracted. Imagine waking up to a world where the internet has suddenly shut down. No social media updates first thing in the morning. No Google Maps to guide you through an unfamiliar city. No way to pay for lunch because your credit card has turned into nothing more than a useless piece of plastic. If you're watching this, congratulations, the internet is still working. But what if someone or something shut it all down? The future of humanity beyond Earth. With recent UFO sightings declassified by the Pentagon, many believe that aliens have already visited us. Maybe, in the not-too-distant future, with the help of SETI, we'll finally prove that we're not alone in the universe. All this talk of shadow biospheres and interstellar light sails got me thinking, why limit ourselves? Instead of going small, why not go even bigger? If you had the opportunity to live in a city on Mars, would you take it? Picture domes, robotic assistants, 24/7 3D printing, and, surprisingly, a whole lot of chickens. After all, scientists have been saying since 1970 that Earth is becoming overcrowded. So, why not do your part to free up some space and become an official Martian? Of course, it won't be easy. You'll have to deal with blinding dust storms that last for months and bone-chilling temperatures that would freeze you in seconds. But hey, you'd be a Martian, a true pioneer who can handle anything, well, except maybe your protein intake. You won't believe how many of those chickens you'll need to eat. Humanity's next great step into space isn't centuries away, it's happening right now. Our destination? That mysterious, desolate world right next door. Mars. Building a Martian city. Imagine starting over on a tiny red dot, more than 225 million kilometers away. If we built a city on Mars, where would we live? Would we have to move underground? How many people would we need? And what would a Martian economy look like? Since 1975, the only earthly visitors to Mars have been satellites and robots. But now, companies like SpaceX are aiming to change that by establishing a fully functional city, complete with government, trade, and culture. However, for this dream to become a reality, Mars settlers must be able to sustain themselves. Without regular shipments from Earth, the colony wouldn't survive. Mars has an elliptical orbit, taking 687 Earth days to complete one trip around the Sun. Because of this, supply missions from Earth could only launch when the planets aligned once every 2 years. And even after an 8-month journey, there's still the risk of losing precious cargo during landing. That means self-sufficiency is crucial. Like any great city, Martian colony would start small. Hong Kong began as a fishing village. Rome was once just a collection of huts. Likewise, Mars' first settlement would be modest. According to the Bordeaux Institute of Technology, a minimum of 110 settlers would be needed to create a sustainable colony. SpaceX plans to start with 2 ships carrying 100 people each, allowing enough manpower to construct habitats and research stations without overburdening resources. If they run out of food at this stage, the mission ends before it even begins. Creating a sustainable Martian civilization. The biggest challenge? Sustainability. Without Earth's regular assistance, Martians would need to grow their own food, generate their own energy, and recycle every possible resource. Mars' surface is extremely hostile. The air is 95% carbon dioxide, making it toxic to humans. Cosmic radiation is intense, and without protection, long-term exposure could be deadly. Underground living might seem like an option, but Martian soil is irradiated. Dig too deep, and you could be living in a radioactive crater. Instead, Settlers would need to construct domed habitats using Martian regolith, a type of soil that, when processed into cement, can provide radiation shielding. Robots and 3D printers would be crucial in building these structures. Inside the domes, research stations, homes, and communal spaces would be connected by tunnels to shield residents from the relentless dust storms. Food, water, and survival with limited supply shipments, the colony would need to find a sustainable food source. Martian soil is toxic, meaning traditional outdoor farming is out of the question. Instead, settlers would have to rely on hydroponics or aeroponics inside climate-controlled greenhouses. And then, there's the question of protein. The low gravity on Mars could lead to muscle loss, so maintaining a high-protein diet would be essential. This is where the chickens come in. Lots of chickens. A single Martian colony would require the equivalent of 110 cooked chicken breasts and 660 carrots per day. Not only would chickens provide food, but their manure would be an invaluable fertilizer for crops. Water, another critical resource, is still a mystery. Scientists suspect that liquid water might exist beneath Mars' polar ice caps. If confirmed, this source could be filtered and used for irrigation. Because of Mars' weaker gravity, plants would require less water than they do on Earth, making efficient farming a real possibility. The Martian economy. Let's talk about money. How would a Martian society function economically? Cash isn't practical for space travel, it's too heavy. Credit cards wouldn't work either, since interplanetary transactions would suffer from a 14-minute communication delay. A more viable solution would be cryptocurrency, something like Marscoin, which colonists would have to purchase with Earth money before departing. This digital currency could be used to build infrastructure, regulate trade, and establish an economic system. However, in a fledgling society, bartering goods and services might be more practical than relying on a digital currency. With survival being the priority, skills like engineering, farming, and medical expertise would be the most valuable assets. The challenges of life on Mars. Even with the best technology, living on Mars wouldn't be easy. It could take a decade just to establish the first sustainable colony. Over time, the settlement could evolve into a full-fledged city, but Mars' challenges would never go away. Would Mars truly be a fresh start for humanity, free from the limitations of Earth's past? Or would history repeat itself, as every sci-fi movie has warned us? But maybe Mars isn't far enough for you. What if we set our sights beyond the red planet, beyond even our solar system? What if we moved the entire human race to an exoplanet like Proxima b? The journey to Proxima b is the closest potentially habitable planet outside our solar system. Located in the Proxima Centauri system, just 4.3 light-years away, it might have liquid water, moderate temperatures, and an atmosphere we could breathe. The only problem? Getting there. Even at the speed of light, the journey would take 4.3 years. With current technology, space shuttle would take 165,000 years. That means multiple generations would be born, live, and die aboard the spacecraft before ever reaching their new home. To ensure genetic diversity, scientists estimate that a minimum of 98 people would be required for a successful interstellar migration. But space travel would take a toll on these pioneers. Living in microgravity for centuries could weaken their muscles, alter their biology, and expose them to dangerous radiation. By the time they arrived, they might not even be the same kind of humans we are today. And what if Proxima b wasn't what we expected? If it lacked a breathable atmosphere, settlers would be forced to live in spacesuits indefinitely. If it was tidally locked, one side would be in perpetual daylight, while the other would remain frozen in darkness. Even if we survived the journey, adapting to this alien world could be just as challenging as leaving Earth in the first place. The future of space colonization, whether it's Mars or Proxima b, humanity's future may lie beyond Earth. But before we embark on a one-way journey across the cosmos, maybe we should focus on taking better care of the planet we already have. Because no matter how far we go, Earth will always be our first home. When we think about trips, we often imagine vacation getaways or exciting new destinations. But there's one trip that's a little less cheerful and yet equally fascinating, the kind where you won't be coming back. Whether it's on Earth or out in the vastness of space, there's a stark truth we can't avoid. Even astronauts, no matter how skilled or experienced, eventually pass away. And when that happens, how do we say goodbye in a place where there's no ground to bury them? Imagine, for a moment, you're out in the great expanse of space. You're exposed to its harsh conditions, and within 15 seconds, you'd lose consciousness, and within a minute, you'd be gone. But let's say you're wearing a top-of-the-line spacesuit. That might give you about 6 hours before your oxygen runs out, but the end result is still the same death. But what happens to your body after that? Will someone come to retrieve it? Or will it simply float in space forever? Well, in this out-of-this-world funeral planning scenario, let's explore what would happen if you died in space. In over 50 years of space exploration, the human race has only lost 8 astronauts. But with plans for civilian space travel and missions to Mars, we may see more space deaths in the future. How then would we handle a funeral in zero gravity? What complications would arise? Every time astronauts launch, death is a real possibility. After all, they're strapping themselves to giant rockets. But because astronauts must be in peak physical condition, the chances of dying on the International Space Station are extremely low. So low, in fact, that NASA doesn't even have a formal protocol for handling such a situation. According to former astronaut Chris Hadfield, it would fall to the commander of the ISS to decide how to proceed. The first major challenge is one we don't think about much. There's nowhere to store a body in space. Space stations aren't equipped with morgues. One possible solution could be to place the body in a pressurized suit and store it somewhere cold. Since dead bodies are considered biohazards, keeping them cold would help contain any bacteria and keep them contained. But what if you don't like the idea of sharing your living quarters with the stiff? Well, there are other ideas. In 2005, a Swedish company proposed a method to freeze dry bodies, breaking them into tiny frozen pieces much like a form of cremation. This would take up far less space, eliminate the biohazard risk, and make it easier to bring the remains back to Earth. If you don't happen to have liquid nitrogen on board, though, the icy cold of space would do the job just as well. But here's the question, could the simplest solution be staring us right in the face? Sailors once buried their dead at sea, so why couldn't astronauts do the same and send their bodies off into space? In theory, yes. But space is a little more complicated than the sea. Without attaching a mini rocket to the deceased, the body would just continue floating, following the spacecraft's trajectory. And if you did this with more than one person, it could make for an awkward journey home. So maybe that's not the best option. What if we waited until we reached another destination, perhaps Mars? We bury people on Earth, so surely we could do the same on another planet, right? Well, digging would be more difficult, but that's not our biggest issue. Human bodies are full of Earth's microbes, which could contaminate any potentially habitable environment. Even spacecraft exploring Mars are meticulously sanitized to avoid infecting the planet with earthly bacteria. So, cremation would likely be the safest option if you were to be buried on another planet. Even in death, space throws curveballs. With makeshift morgues, interplanetary contamination concerns, and the cold expanse of space, we might want to start adding a space death clause to our wills. Living in a skyscraper high above the clouds would require some serious thought about utilities like water and electricity. Luckily, this could be a perfect opportunity to harness renewable resources. You could integrate wind turbines into the design of the tower, and with solar panels high in the sky, you'd have access to abundant solar energy. As for water, it's possible to collect it directly from the sky. The troposphere holds nearly all of Earth's water vapor, so rainwater and condensation from the clouds could be harvested. Just be sure to leave some for those of us on the ground. But reaching your luxury condo in the sky wouldn't be simple. You definitely couldn't use the stairs, especially if you were in a hurry or worse, during an emergency. A theoretical space elevator might be the solution, traveling at speeds of up to 320 kilometers per hour. At around the height of the Km line, it would take about 25 minutes to get from your penthouse to the ground floor. Of course, you'd have a much faster commute if you used a parachute, But that would only work if you didn't burn up like a meteoroid in the mesosphere. The truth is, living at such an altitude would come with a number of challenges. The temperature variations would be extreme. At the bottom of the thermosphere, it could be as cold as 10°C, and at the top, it could soar to 2,000°C. You certainly wouldn't be able to enjoy an afternoon on your balcony without special protection from the extreme temperatures and oxygen deficiencies. There would also be a constant risk of damage from meteorites, broken satellites, or even hurricanes and tornadoes below. If your 100 kilometers tall skyscraper collapsed, it would cause catastrophic damage to the area below. If I were dreaming of a view of space, I'd prefer to be in a real space shuttle, or perhaps as a guest at the International Space Station ISS. It's still reserved for those with hefty bank accounts. There's hope that someday, we might be able to book a suborbital Airbnb. The future of space tourism is getting closer. The ISS has been a vital part of space exploration for over 2 decades, hosting over 250 astronauts. It serves as a research facility where scientists study everything from microgravity to new medical technologies. This research is crucial for advancing interplanetary travel. However, the ISS won't last forever. With air leaks and other technical issues, it's expected to be decommissioned by 2030. But when the time comes to retire the ISS, the door will be open for the next wave of space explorers. Private companies are stepping in, launching new space stations into orbit in the next decade. This will make space tourism more accessible, although it'll still come with a hefty price tag. NASA can then focus on pushing our exploration beyond Earth's orbit, with Mars as the next major goal. SpaceX's Dragon spacecraft are already transporting astronauts to the ISS, saving NASA billions. But a window seat for an astronaut still costs around $50 million. It seems you'd still need to keep saving for your ticket into space. Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin has designed its own low Earth orbit station, Orbital Reef. It'll feature the usual research labs, but also amenities like 3D printers and the ability to grow plants off Earth. If you're looking for a space hotel, Axiom Space is already building a module that will attach to the ISS before becoming its own independent space station. The hotel will feature large windows with breathtaking views of Earth and cutting-edge entertainment systems. You could even start a business in space, with modules tailored to your needs. On the other hand, Sierra Space is working on inflatable habitats, known as life habitats, which could be used for free-floating space stations or even as a base on the moon. These structures would include crew quarters, closets, better bathrooms, and even a nuclear power plant, basically, a stopover on your way to Mars. Space tourism and colonization are becoming increasingly feasible, and the technology is rapidly advancing. Whether it's luxury hotels, research facilities, or lunar bases, it looks like the future of space travel could be much closer than we think. Now, let's zoom out to even more ambitious scenarios. What if we could move our entire solar system? Imagine the energy required to shift the sun and all its orbiting planets. This challenge would require a stellar engine, a type of hypothetical megastructure designed to harness the energy of a star. One proposed idea involves using a giant parabolic mirror, known as the Skadov thruster, to reflect photons back around the sun, creating thrust. This would slowly move the sun and everything in its orbit, though it could take millions of years to travel, just 100 light years. A more efficient approach might involve a Dyson swarm, a set of quadrillions of mirrors orbiting the sun, concentrating its energy to push the sun in any direction we choose. This would be much faster, but building the Dyson sphere would take time, effort, and a massive amount of resources, including mining mercury for metals. The idea of relocating our solar system may sound fantastical, but with the right technology, it could one day become a reality. And even if it were possible, researchers believe the shift wouldn't have a major effect on life on Earth, as the acceleration would be gradual. It's more likely that our immediate future will involve exploring new planets in our galaxy. In another, more terrifying scenario, Let's imagine what would happen if the Earth suddenly boiled for 5 seconds. The temperatures would rise so rapidly that bodies of water would instantly turn to steam. Most life on Earth would be wiped out, with only a few heat-resistant microbes surviving. Humans would suffer from severe burns, and the steam inside your body would cause you to explode. It's a devastating reminder of how fragile life on Earth can be in the face of extreme temperature changes. And finally, picture a world where everyone wakes up with no memory of who they are. What would happen to society if every person everywhere suddenly forgot their past? Would it be a blessing or a curse? Could humanity rebuild itself, or would the chaos prove too much to handle? These are just a few of the cosmic questions we face as we explore the mysteries of space and our place within it. The possibilities are endless, and one day, we might find ourselves living in space, exploring new worlds, or even shifting our solar system. The future is uncertain, but it's a thrilling time to dream about what could be possible. Wow, that's quite an interesting thought experiment about the impact of a global memory wipe. You've painted a vivid picture of how society might completely collapse or undergo radical change if everyone lost their memories. The idea of humanity starting from scratch, even with our evolutionary skills and survival knowledge intact, but without context for how society functions, like knowing the value of money, the roles of professionals, or even basic relationships, is really eye-opening. It'd be a total reset. The exploration of memory itself is fascinating as well. How it gets reconstructed over time, and how even our recollection of events can change, adds an eerie layer to the concept of forgetting. The use of drugs to erase memories of traumatic experiences could open up the question of whether we could ever scientifically engineer something to reset memories on a large scale. I'm also curious about the potential consequences. Would society ever fully recover? Or would it become an irreversible breakdown? And then the NASA budget hypothetical. It's really mind-blowing to imagine how much more could be achieved in space exploration with such a massive increase in funding. Colonizing Mars, missions to Europa, and interstellar travel would no longer be far-off dreams. The possibilities of exploring new frontiers and setting up bases on the Moon or Mars would completely redefine humanity's future. It makes you wonder, how close could we actually be to turning those what-ifs into reality with the right resources? Would you want to be part of that space exploration era if it ever happened? If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like this video, it really helps us out. Share it with friends who'd love to learn something new, and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating content like this. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.